Another question that I get asked as recently as yesterday, actually, for moving to the US, some people live in jurisdictions and they have a passport that is unable to benefit from the E2 treatment, and so easier access to the US. So one of the popular ways from like a citizenship and residency planning perspective is the Grenada passport. It's a Caribbean island for those who are unfamiliar. So the Caribbean island of Grenada. And apparently you get the opportunity to access the US. Can you tell us a bit more about that?
Yeah, absolutely. So this is a strategy that it's gotten actually pretty popular over the last couple of years. And then the pandemic, I think, actually pushed a lot of people to explore other residencies, for a million different reasons. So, yeah, this strategy, it's exactly what you mentioned. So there's a special visa in the United States. It's called an E2 Treaty Investor Visa. And it's a visa that's based on a treaty of trade and commerce between the United States and another country. And there's about 80 countries that can utilize these E2 visas. For example, Singapore, South Korea, Taiwan, Australia, New Zealand now is a new country. Israel is a newer country. So all around the world, there's about 80 of them. But actually, kind of intriguingly enough, some of the big countries don't have access to this, like Brazil, Russia, China, India. So these countries, and then many others in Asia and elsewhere in the Middle East, it's been very popular in Vietnam to do this, and other countries. What they do is they get residency, or they get a passport from another country that does have E2 access. And the easiest way to do this is the country that you actually just mentioned, Derren, Grenada. There are other countries where you can do this. Some people choose Turkey. Others have selected other countries, but Grenada actually offers the best strategy. And so what the individual would do is that they would go through the Grenada citizenship program, become a Grenada citizen, get that Grenada passport, and then use the Grenada passport to apply for an E2 visa. And the E2 visa is a 5-year multiple entry visa that allows you to invest in your own business or company in the United States. It can be any type of business. The investment just has to be, quote, substantial. And so the government doesn't say what that means. They don't give a minimum number. I would recommend that you would always invest at least $100,000 on up. We have investors who have invested less than that, but most of the E2 investments are around 150 to 250, something like that. And again, in any type of business at all, we have investments in retail outlets, consulting businesses, you name it. Restaurants is very popular for E2. Small hotels, motels, things like that. And it's great because it's as I mentioned, it's 5-year multiple entry, and you can continue to renew that visa indefinitely as long as your business keeps going. So it basically can acts a lot like a green card in many ways. And you can come into the US as much as you like or as little as you like. So if you only want to spend 3 months a year in the US, it's perfectly fine. If you want to spend all 12, it's perfectly fine too. So very flexible visa. And it actually does allow for the spouse to get their own work authorization to work anywhere.
Wow. Okay. And what's the processing time for that visa?
So another good point about the E2 is that the whole process is handled at the US Embassy or the consulate. So you don't need to file forms inside the United States with the various US government agencies. Everything's handled at the consulate. Generally speaking, I would say you need to plan for at least 1 to 2 months to get everything together, your investment documents, all of that, get it to the embassy. The embassies are getting faster now with reviewing cases. The pandemic did slow things down a bit. But we're able to get cases in various posts around the world, get them all through within 3 to 5 months. So yeah, it can happen pretty quickly. And you can also request for an expedite.
Wow. Okay. So you mentioned like at least 100K, but then you mentioned in terms of the industries consulting. So I would imagine that consulting doesn't really have like a lot of investment. So if it is, you have a consulting business already, let's say in Singapore, and you want to migrate that business, and it may be mobile depending what you do, maybe it's on Zoom, I don't know, and you want to migrate that to the US, can that work in a situation like that?
It can. And we have actually ongoing consulting companies, all the time, and in fact from Singapore. So normally, if you do have a consulting company, you raised a really good issue in that there's not a lot of, quote, investment. Because if you're a small business, small consulting business, you're probably not going to have a lot of equipment. You're not going to have any goods and merchandise that you're going to ship, maybe. So you don't have a lot of hard expenses or hard investment. And so in this type of situation, your best bet is to actually put your investment into your commercial property that you're going to use for your business. So if you are of the means and in a good financial position to do that, perhaps buying the commercial property that you're going to put your office in, or executing a long lease, like a 2 or 3 year lease, which in the United States for commercial property, it's very common to have, for example, 5-year leases or 3-year leases at least. And so what you can do in this context is, and we would recommend, or you should get your legal counsel to help you with, is that when you're executing this lease, say you do a 3-year lease for your business property, you want to have a clause in that contract that says this lease will be executed officially and it is contingent upon issuance of the E2 visa. Because you don't want to be stuck in a situation where you're leasing a property for 3 years and for whatever reason you don't get your visa. And so you got to have those protection mechanisms in there. But the embassy will accept that as being something that you're committing your funds to. And so you would put your funds in escrow, maybe 2 to 3 years worth of the payment of that premises. And then upon issuance of the E2, funds are released and everything satisfies for the E2 purpose. But those are just a couple of thoughts. You can play around with this too.
Okay, excellent. Thank you for that.
Please subscribe, like, share, and comment below. Our books and upcoming events are available at htj.tax. Email us at help@htj.tax to engage us, to advise on international tax or business matters.